Next slide was discussing how long should a full-size competitive game ideally last. Um, the majority of people selected 2 hours, which was
Yeah.
just under 45% of the people polled. There is a sharp decline to 2.5 hours, and then it drops pretty quick if you're going past that. But there's a nice ramp up from basically 30 minutes to an hour to hour and a half to 2 hours. Like you can see this nice building mountain. So I think most people probably assume a miniature game is going to take the 2 hours. They probably this was not accounting for list building or model assembly or just setting up the board. That obviously can vary greatly by each individual type of game and how much terrain you own. But 2 hours is probably the benchmark that everyone wants. We all know it can go past that.
Yeah.
And we don't want a game that goes 30 minutes because that means someone lost real hard.
And it's probably it probably becomes frustrating for people. I mean, I've played a lot of card games. Again, it's one of the things that I really enjoyed for most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So card games are traditionally faster, right? We're not playing a game for 2.5 hours. But if we're playing the game 2.5 hours, which is common, we're actually playing several matches. But in terms of miniature wargaming, this actually made me rethink and change some aspects in Black Star, because Black Star was actually, since the main focus is like it's a mech tournament, so it's the main focus was duels, and duels means a lot of times 1v1 or 2v2, which wouldn't be matches that take a long time, you know. So initially, Black Star was actually focusing on that 30 minutes to an hour range, and this has actually made me consider that people actually want slightly longer experience around the 2 hour mark to in order to feel more satisfied with the playing experience.
Yeah, and I think it's just going to vary to a lot of people. I know there are a lot of players who are like, look, I don't have the time anymore to play miniature games
Yeah.
because it takes so long. But I think sometimes people lose perspective of how much time it takes. It varies greatly on objective focused games or if you're just trying to just kill them all, and it,
Oh
it
yeah.
it changes a lot. And it also is going to the more models on the table can more than likely extend the amount of time. So if you're playing a squad based game or a gladiator style game where it's just one on one, that game should go much shorter than someone who's playing battalion or more. You should understand that if you're playing 36 or 50 models per side, now not squads, but like individual units, the game's going to take longer. There's no way around that, just from sheer time of moving and activating. You've extended the game time.
Yeah, and people obviously need to be reasonable, but and then you go into the stuff like I think this is part of the reason why Alpha Strike, the alternative rules for BattleTech, has some trouble here. Because if you use too few units, the game is actually over quite fast. Because the rules and the mech statistics are so simplified.
Mm-hmm.
If and and if you actually use a lot of units, you do hit that more ideal playtime, but then you don't really get the satisfaction of what a large BattleTech engagement actually feels like using the traditional rules. Because I was a games master for years and years for lots of people playing BattleTech, the classic BattleTech, and I still remember like spending like half my Friday when I was like a kid in college and high school, half my Friday planning the campaign. It was supposed to be like Saturday afternoon, but it ended up eating all of Saturday, and then we ended up having to return all of Sunday in order to complete the mission, because as the campaign developed and the mercenary company that the players had kept growing, I kept not only did you have more units from the friendly side, I also had to manage more enemies to challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got into campaign against company versus company sized games in Battletech, and it lasted the entire weekend. So obviously I know that game is not going to be quick. But if you have a rule set that makes it go super super fast, you lose the impact of the fact that that this is supposed to be a huge battle. So it ends up being unsatisfying both on the long end and on the short end, depending on the rules.
Right. And with Revelation Skirmish, we landed on about the 2 hour mark. Most of the games, once players understand the rules, they understand their units, and they get more comfortable with the game. 2 hours is definitely the feasible side, if not a little bit sooner, because it's an objective focused game. So you could lose all your models and you could still win because you completed your objective and your opponent didn't. And the objectives
Right.
will normally be different. So what the attacker and the defender can have different objectives. So the defender can definitely sabotage the attacker before the 2 hour mark. And I think a lot of the time with the time, it kind of, people want to be able to casually enjoy their game. But I've played so many games with so many different people, and some people just talk a lot more. So it stretches the game
Yeah.
because but you don't want to lose that social aspect either, because you can't play your miniature game unless it's solo without the social aspect. So you have to have another person, and you can't make that other person go as fast as you want most of the time. So you got to kind of just roll with it. I think the 2 hour is definitely both makes me feel better as a creator that that's where it landed for people, but also they weren't expecting 1 hour or less games, which are achievable in card games, but not so much with miniatures.
Yeah, and again, if you're focusing on that short playtime using miniatures, then I do get the impression how it can be unfulfilling. So like I said, it has made me reevaluate and change some things for Black Star.